Eisenhower also called his country's relations with Russia his top priority and pledged full support for President Putin. While the two nations confirmed boosting their defense ties without specifics, analysts worldwide began speculating on the nature of their dealings. The arrangement would put them in clear violation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions. This would all be confirmed 1 month later. On October 13, 2023, John Kirby, a National Security Council spokesman, announced that as many as 1,000 containers with varied equipment and munitions had been delivered from North Korea to Russian borders in recent weeks. This announcement was complemented by a White House photo release of imagery of about 300 containers assembled in North Korea, delivered to an ammunition depot in southwestern Russia near Tukharetsk, only 180 miles away from the Ukrainian border. But newer satellite images, analyzed by the British Royal United Services Institute, or RUSI, suggest that North Korea's trade of military equipment and munitions is a much more elaborate and extensive operation than initially thought. Not one but two ships have been traveling since mid-August, going back and forth between the northeastern North Korean port of Rajin and a secure port facility in Dunai in Russia's Far East at least 5 times. Although it is impossible to tell what is being transported, the images show ships linked to the Russian military logistics network, strongly suggesting these commercial vessels carry military equipment. This analysis provided the clearest evidence that, after support from Russia for decades, Pyongyang is now helping pour Moscow's war effort. Previously, the two ships had no record of running this route between North Korea and Russia until after the high-level meetings between the two nations. The satellite image analysis made by RUSI found that the Russian-flagged cargo ship, the Angara, began traveling between Rajin, North Korea, and Dunai, Russia, as early as mid-August. Toward the end of the month, another Russian vessel, Maria, became involved in a similar path. Shortly before they began operating along this route, according to the ship tracking website Marine Traffic, the two vessels turned off the signal of their automatic identification system, allowing Maria and Angara to hide their position as they illegally transited between ports. Also, around the same time, there was a rapid expansion of munition pits at an ammunition depot in Tukharetsk, close to the front lines. In the analyzed images, the two ships make multiple trips between Dunai and Rajin, picking up and delivering cargo at each location. At the Rajin port, the two ships load and unload containers at different docks. In Dunai, the ships have unloaded their cargo while accompanied by a military vessel. Conveniently, North Korea makes 2 of the types of munitions that Russia has used heavily in the war: the Soviet-era 122mm Grad rockets and 122mm howitzer artillery rounds. Now, desperately in need of more as the war against Ukraine continues with no end in sight, North Korea and Russia have been collaborating for longer than the West initially thought. Other weapons also likely part of this exchange include artillery platforms and rocket launchers. The duo have made at least 5 trips since, moving hundreds of containers, according to the images. The latest delivery from North Korea to Russia took place on October 14th. Angara is owned by M Leasing, a Russian company that has already been sanctioned by the United States, the United Kingdom, and Ukraine for the transportation of weapons and military equipment in the interest of the Russian government. This company is in turn handled by Marine Transshipping, another controversial maritime shipping company sanctioned for transporting weapons for the Russian government. As for Maria, registration documents show a company called JSC Sofracht is associated with the vessel. In 2019, the United States named Sofracht as a company behind a sanctions evasion conspiracy to aid Russian forces operating in Syria in support of the regime of Bashar al-Assad. North Korea is not the first, and probably not the last rogue state that Russia has turned to for help during its grueling attrition war with Ukraine. Since 2022, Moscow has relied heavily on Iranian-made explosive drones to use on Ukrainian cities, civilians, and the country's infrastructure for over a year. Both of these partnerships have unsurprisingly drawn sharp criticism and condemnation from Washington. Following the critical announcement about this arms trade, American spokesman John Kirby stated, quote, "This expanding military partnership between the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and Russia, including any technology transfers from Russia to the DPRK, undermines regional stability and the global non-proliferation regime." Jack Watling, senior research fellow for land warfare at RUSI, also said that this exchange would likely have a severe impact on the trajectory of the war in Ukraine because of the already in-stock ammunition amounts by North Korea. In return for support, RUSI and the USA believe that Pyongyang is seeking military assistance from Russia, from fighter aircraft, armored vehicles, ballistic missile production equipment, and more advanced technologies. Since the early days of the Ukraine war, President Biden's administration has voiced suspicion that North Korea has supplied weapons to Russia. These beliefs were only amplified as it became clear last year that Moscow was running low on advanced weaponry and was expending massive amounts of shells in what